Welcome to the final video in the series on backward design. In the second video in this series, we learned that backward design principles emerged from the foundational text Understanding by Design, which challenged the more traditional methods of designing courses where content is privileged and is often the starting point for instruction. We want to make clear, however, that designing courses with content in mind is not necessarily a bad thing. It just shouldn't be the first and most important component when building or revising a course. If content is privileged above learning outcomes, it can lead to what Wiggins and McTeague called the twin sins of design. Starting with content rather than defined learning outcomes means that no guiding intellectual purpose or clear priorities frame the learning experience. Thus, students are unable to see and answer such questions as these. What's the point? What's the big idea here? What does this help us understand or be able to do? To what does this relate? Why should we learn this? Hence, the students try to engage and follow as best they can, hoping that meaning will emerge. Let's take a look at how to avoid this by talking more about the 3 stages of backward design. The first stage of backward design asks you to decide, what are the ultimate goals for the learner in your course? What should students be able to understand and do when they leave your class? In other words, what are the learning objectives or learning outcomes for your course? If you cannot decide the learning outcomes for your class due to state standards or other regulations, what are the outcomes for each model or unit you want to develop? The second stage of backward design is all about testing or assessment. It asks you to decide how you know that your students understand the content. This means that, rather than waiting until the midterm or end of the semester, the second thing you need to decide and design is how you're going to test or assess your students' ability to understand the material and that they can do what you want them to be able to do. Finally, you should start thinking about what instructional materials and activities you can use to prepare them for those assessments and tests you just created. What content or textbook chapters will you use for this preparation? And is the content you give and activities you assign directly connected to the learning objectives or competencies? Backward design is a non-traditional way of approaching course creation. However, research shows that students benefit greatly from this approach. It takes a little getting used to, but beginning with the end in mind has positive outcomes for both you and your students. Thank you for watching this 3-part video series. If you enjoyed this and want to learn more about backward course design, please consider watching our 2-part series on alignment.